Today, I'm going to explain an action fantasy movie called Valhalla Rising. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. The movie opens in the Scottish Highlands in the 11th century, where we see a kid who is known only as the Boy. He brings some food to a prisoner whose name is unknown and is called One Eye because he only has one eye. The poor guy is chained like a slave, and there are several guards around him. It turns out that One Eye is a ferocious warrior who has superhuman strength and is able to defeat all his opponents even while bound. He is enslaved by a group of pagans who use him to fight to the death in a kind of gladiatorial combat against other prisoners. The only one who feels bad for One Eye is the Boy, but he is helpless, as he is also just a slave. We also learn that One Eye has the ability to foresee events in his dreams. Later, the clan members prepare One Eye for another battle and take him to a fighting place where several masters are present to gamble. One Eye's master is called the Chieftain, and after his slave is defeated by the opponent, he sends One Eye to fight. Our protagonist then puts up a brave fight, and even though he is bound, he easily manages to beat his opponent and breaks his neck, which stuns everyone. After that, he is locked with chains like a dog and put back in a wooden cage. The Boy then feeds him food and water, and even though One Eye never really speaks, it's clear he has a soft spot for the kid, or he wants to eat him, depends on what you've seen Mads in before. Afterward, the Chieftain is approached by another master of the clan. He says that no one has kept One Eye for more than 5 years. He tells the Chieftain his time is over now and requests to buy the warrior, but the Chieftain is hesitant as he doesn't want to lose his consistent source of income. In the following days, we see One Eye going through several brutal fights, each one of which he manages to win successfully. The Chieftain discusses One Eye with his clan, and they all theorize that the man has come from hell. One night, while One Eye is sleeping, he has a prophetic dream in which he finds an object in a pool. The following day, while he is washing himself in a lake, he finds a broken arrowhead and quickly hides it with him. Later that night, a man visits the Chieftain and tells him about how Christians are bastards, as they killed their God, ate his flesh, and drank his blood. He states how the Christians hate pagans like them and want them gone as they pray for their deaths. However, he claims to be better than them as they have many gods, while the Christians have only one. The man says they need to fight against Christians, and for that reason, they need One Eye. The Chieftain is hesitant to let his precious slave go, but when the man offers a lot of money, he finally agrees. The next morning, the Boy offers food to One Eye as usual, after which the clan members take him out of his cage. The Chieftain then asks who he is, but One Eye stays silent, after which they put a hood on his head and take him away from there chained. On the way, One Eye uses the arrowhead he had hidden to untie the chains from his neck, after which he quickly begins attacking everyone. The clan members rush to attack him, but they're no match for him, and he easily kills them. In the end, he finishes everyone except the Boy and ties up the last clan. The man begins mocking him, saying he'll go to hell for this, so One Eye cuts his belly and spills his blood, while the guy screams in pain. Following this, One Eye places the head of the Chieftain on a knitting pole, which is a form of Norse insult trophy. As he walks away, he recalls the Chieftain saying how One Eye is driven by hate, and that's how he survives, and why he never loses. The Boy now has nowhere to go, so he also begins following One Eye, who allows him to come with him. The two walk for days together and rest side by side, during which the Boy tries to chat with One Eye. He shows his locket and says it was gifted to him by his father, but One Eye remains silent and doesn't respond. That night, he experiences another prophetic vision in which he sees himself and the Boy with a group of men in a boat. The next day, they continue walking and soon come across a group of crusaders who have just razed a village and kidnapped a bunch of women whom they have stripped naked. They turn out to be Christians, and the leader, who is called the General, asks if they're from their clans. One Eye is mute as usual, but the Boy fears for their lives and says they are Christian. The General obviously doesn't believe him and prepares to attack, but one of the crusaders stops him, saying this is the most fearsome One Eye, who has killed his master and his entire clan. Next, the General sends his son to attack him, so One Eye also prepares his axe and gets ready for the fight, but in the end, the General's son gets scared and decides to withdraw as he can't fight against such a dangerous guy. The General asks asks the name of the warrior, but the boy says that he doesn't have a name, so they call him One Eye. The general then invites the duo to eat with his group and have further conversation. Later they sit together, and the general asks what they plan to do now that they have their freedom. The boy says he wants to go home, but has no idea where it is, while One Eye stays silent. The general then reveals they are all heading from Jerusalem to reclaim the Holy Land, and says they can use a good crusader like One Eye. He says there's great honor in it, and they will be rewarded with great riches and land. One Eye isn't so sure, so a priest also tries to convince him, saying even though he may live or die, his sins will be cleansed, and he will see his loved ones. The general then asks the boy where One Eye comes from, to which the boy responds that he was brought up in hell, which is on the other side of the ocean, right beside the Denny's. After some consideration, One Eye accepts his invitation, after which he and the boy sail on a boat with the crusaders, just like he had seen in his vision. However, the group soon begins facing many obstacles, such as extreme weather from thick fog, the absence of wind, and challenging ocean currents. During their time, one of the crusaders preaches to the boy about Christ, saying how he sacrificed his life so that all of them could be free from pain and misery. He states this is why they're going to protect his land and kingdom, and he urges the boy to be strong in this crisis. However, weeks pass and the weather is still the same, which leaves the men extremely frustrated. The crusaders continue praying to the Lord, but despite this, the situation doesn't change. They remain stranded in the middle of nowhere with increasingly minimal food and water. At one point, a desperate man ends up drinking seawater, even though the others warn him that he could die. Everyone soon starts to lose patience, and the man from before continues to preach to the boy about Jesus repeatedly. During the journey, one of the men eventually passes away after drinking too much seawater, so the others throw his body into the river. Weeks later, the situation is still the same, so the crusaders theorize that maybe they are cursed. They think the boy is the reason behind all of this, so they decide to kill him. One of the men tries to attack the kid with a knife, but before he can do anything, One Eye stabs him in the gut and throws him into the water. The other crusaders are horrified by this and prepare their weapons to attack, but the general asks them to back off. Everyone then calms down and takes their seats, while One Eye silently makes it clear that no one can hurt the boy. At one point, a crusader recalls how the boy said that One Eye came from hell, so he thinks they are all heading there. The scene then cuts to days later, where we see everyone on the boat lying exhausted and very weak. One Eye then gets up and fetches some water from below, which he proceeds to drink without hesitation. Upon seeing this, a man begins laughing, saying this is only going to kill him faster, so One Eye hands him the water as well. The man proceeds to drink it and is shocked to see that it's fresh water. This excites everyone, and soon they realize that the boat is actually in an estuary and no longer at sea. They all begin drinking and soon notice the first sign of land off in the distance, which fills them with happiness. Not long after, they get off the boat thinking they're in Jerusalem, but they find themselves in vast forests full of lakes and mountains, which look nothing like their holy land. The crusaders immediately set out to look for supplies and signs of civilization, but they don't find anything or anyone there. They instead come across some aboriginal burial sites, indicating that there is a settlement here. At this moment, one of the crew members, Hawk, leaves the group to venture on his own. Later, One Eye sees a vision in which he notices a man covered in mud and several other people like him. The general then says that he wants to show the locals that a man of God has arrived. One Eye ventures off on his own, and at the same time we see Hawk, who is resting nearby and hears some noises. He quickly prepares a sword and goes to confront whoever the figure is. Later, the crusaders are resting when all of a sudden One Eye returns the sword, and they recognize it belongs to their friend Hawk. This leaves them confused, and they begin searching for their missing friend, but he is nowhere to be seen. The crusaders thus assume that One Eye must have killed him, and worry that he is going to kill all of them one by one. Meanwhile, the general says he once had a dream about being lost and unable to find his way home, only to realize he was dead. He concludes that this isn't the Holy Land and suggests leaving, but the priest worries about their missing friend. The general says they will leave the sword for him, and if he finds it, it's God's will. He says they must continue moving to find out where they are. Following this, all of them get on the boat and proceed to sail away from there, but things take a dark turn when all of a sudden the group is targeted by a single arrow, which pierces one of their men. This sends everyone into panic, so they ready their weapons and return to the shore, but they don't see a single person in sight, leaving them shocked. Later, the group disperses in the woods to look for their attackers, but they still don't see anyone. The general finds the arrow that killed their friend and soon realizes it has a stone tip, which makes them understand that their attackers are a primitive tribe. The general says they were brought out of the mist for a reason and suggests they claimed this land for his men, but the priest asks how they can do that as they're half-starved and have already lost 3 of their crusaders. However, the general doesn't seem worried and gives him a drink for encouragement. Next, the general gives everyone the drink, which they accept, including One Eye. He once again has prophetic visions, in which a group of primitive people attack him on a coastline and brutally beat him. Meanwhile, the drink given by the general makes everyone high, evoking different emotions including anger and desperation. Some pray, others wander. One Eye also collects rocks and piles them on each other. After much effort on the riverbank, the boy then watches in horror as one of the crusaders violently tries to stab the river, while another man is seen forcing himself on his own friend. The general, on the other hand, is seen laughing and praying in the river, without a care in the world. This lasts for a while, and eventually the crusaders come to their senses and return to reality. But then, things take a shocking turn when they see Hawk returning, but he is completely naked, and his body is covered with mud and strange carvings, resembling the markings of a primitive tribe. One Eye then recalls that this is the same man he had seen in his vision, and it seems that Hawk was kidnapped by the primitives, who made him like one of their own. Later, the group questions Hawk about what happened to him and where he was, but the man doesn't say anything. Instead, he says he can hear One Eye now, who talks perfectly. The general asks what he says, to which Hawk replies that he says they're in hell. This worries the others, and one man claims it was One Eye who brought them here, and that he is responsible for everything. The boy, who now understands One Eye, speaks up, saying One Eye says they need to leave this place and that the forest is the only way out. Another man argues that they should go back to the boat, but the general refuses to return to the mist again. He says they need to show these tribal people that they're men of God. He suggests raising their cross and claiming this land is holy, after which the heathens will be converted, their sins will be cleansed, and a new Jerusalem will be established. However, another crusader argues and accuses the general of promising them riches in the Holy Land, which never happened, and now they're in hell. He draws his sword and goes to attack One Eye, but the latter easily defeats him and stabs his throat. He also kills another man coming to attack him, after which he finishes the first man by striking his head with an axe, while the crusaders watch in shock. One Eye then proceeds to leave and looks at the boy, who decides to follow him, and they head off. Upon seeing this, the priest says they need to follow him, but the general rushes to hug him and shockingly stabs him in the back, accusing him of turning his back on God. The injured guy proceeds to limp away, while the general says that only the man of faith deserves the riches of his new Jerusalem. Later, the general says he will build crosses up and down the river to guide the Christian brothers who will come to join them, and that they will also bring women. He says their city will stand for thousands of years, and tells Hawk that he will be his spiritual advisor, but Hawk begins to laugh at this idea, which worries the general. He then goes to the water to pray, when the primitives proceed to attack him with arrows, and eventually kill him, which is also noticed by the boy and One Eye in the distance. Elsewhere, we see the injured priest and the general's son, who is still following One Eye, hoping he can guide them. They rest on the top of a hill, and the general's son wonders if he can ever forgive his father for bringing him to this place. The priest also says he came to ask forgiveness from his son since he wasn't there when his son died in the battle. The boy says that according to One Eye, the boy will find a sea, build a new boat, and be able to go home. The general's son asks what he said about him, to which the boy informs him that he will die. This leaves the man shocked, and he asks One Eye why he came here, but the latter doesn't give it any answer. Next, the general's son decides to go back to be with his father, even though he is dead. He then walks away from there, while One Eye and the boy proceed to move forward. The boy expects the injured priest to come as well, but the man simply smiles at him and decides to stay and wait for his death. Sometime later, One Eye and the boy successfully reach the coastline, which One Eye had seen before in his dreams. He admires the beautiful landscape, but when he looks back, he is stunned to see a large number of primitive tribespeople. One Eye silently orders the boy not to move, then approaches the tribespeople while dropping his axe on the way. He realizes his journey is now over and decides to sacrifice himself for the sake of the kid. He soon closes his eyes, after which the tribespeople waste no time and brutally attack him, just as he has seen in his visions. One Eye eventually dies, after which the tribespeople decide to spare the boy and walk away. The movie ends as the shaken boy looks out at the ocean and One Eye's face appears in the clouds, implying that he has returned to Valhalla.